Welcome to Willing to Win. I can see your future, and I can prove it. Skeptical? Don't be. I'm not claiming paranormal abilities or special gifts. I'm not the one, just someone that spent the last 30 years thinking about the future of us. The way we live, the way we work, and the way we play. And like a moth to a flame, the pull of the future and forever is immeasurably strong because the future holds within it all possibility and all hope. Until tomorrow gives way to today and then gives way to now. Will we be ready? Will you be ready? Dream or dread, each new day is not a matter of fate. Each new day is the product of faith, self-belief, and collaborative will. Each day is an outcome, the result of what leaders and followers, individuals and organizations did yesterday. Each new day is an expression of us, more knowable than we ever imagined, more controllable than we ever dreamt. What's next doesn't arrive in secret. The future is transparent to those that learn its secrets, and I can see your future. You will take one of two paths. One path is the path of tradition, the path of the good old days that only seem that way in retrospect, the path that stays rigidly fixed on the way things were, forever tied to the belief that change just happens and can be ignored. The second path is the path of the leader, the path traveled by those that do not fear change. They embrace it. It is the path of those that believe that we all do better when we all do better. And if we can do better, we have a responsibility to try. It is the path for those who believed Elton John and Etta James when they sang out, "Change is going to do me good." My crystal ball doesn't tell me which path you'll choose, only what you'll experience along the way. Come explore what tomorrow may bring, because the future starts now if you're willing to win. If you're willing to think different, willing to work different, willing to change at the speed of now, then you're willing to win. Hi everybody, I'm Jeff Kaplan.
And I'm Tara Thomas Getman. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Willing to Win, where right now we are diving deep into change, chaos, and you. And really, when we think about change, we can't overlook that we're living in an age of information overload.
Yeah, absolutely. Our last episode, we focused on how the environment is changing around us. And there was a lot of things to think about, including, a car that could sense ghosts in the graveyard. But this week, I think, is even a little bit more ominous when we think about the amount of information we as individuals, have to take in each day in the information age. It is estimated by a recent article that was titled, Why is it so hard to pay attention? They estimated that the average person has to take in the equivalent of 174 newspapers a day. That's a lot of information. So you can imagine how people are having difficulty sort of staying up with the times, right? And making transitions. I've always been one that's loved, new technology and been sort of like an early adopter, but I was kind of late to the smartphone craze because I just loved my BlackBerry. I'm sorry if there's people out there that didn't like your BlackBerry, but that keyboard, man, I could type like a dream on that thing. Little did I know that the smartphone will become the sort of Swiss Army knife of all technology, and you can't live without it. But it takes some time to do that. And I think it's all part of what this episode's about when it comes to information. And that is making a commitment to lifelong learning so that you're not left behind as change happens.
And now lifelong learning has become essential for many people to not only be able to sort of keep up with the times, as we say, but to stay employed, to be viable in a space, an employment space, where you truly have to know the skills that years ago used to be reserved for maybe just the one IT guy or gal that was a part of your office. When we think about training and technology and how now it's accelerated, I remember years ago when we were getting a new phone system, and I'm talking, the landlocked phone attached to a cord, for those of you who may not get it. We would do an all-staff training for this new phone system because of all the bells and whistles in the landline. you may 15, 20 years in use that same system, those same phones. Now, I mean, we're looking at software changes not even every year, sometimes every 3 to 5 months, right? So what statistics tell us is that to be a part of this lifelong learning is it's a table stake, as you like to call it, right? Something where you have to be open and willing, or you will be left behind. And the statistic is right now that Gen Xers, my generation, more than 50%, 60% of managers are saying you have to have some of these basic computer operating skills, when in fact only about half of the 12,000 Gen Xers surveyed in this case said, yeah, I know how to do that. I'm comfortable with that software. So we see this digital divide, not just with, a grandparent who needs a grandson to help program his or her phone. It's happening with our economy. And it's the health, the social, and the economic impact of not staying in the motion of moving forward with your learning.
Yeah, I remember we talked about that at the production meeting. I think the skill you were talking about, and this is why I want to share this part with our viewers, the skill wasn't simply, turning on, your cell phone, or, turning on a computer, or in the old days, /* such and such to try to get it to do something. They're talking about right there, the skill they wanted was that they could program in JavaScript. Right? I mean, that's just a very specific skill. And I think I'm really technically adept, but I don't think I could jump on Java and create something. I don't know how many of our listeners could do that. But 59% of employers are looking for that. Yeah, and that's just absolutely crazy. And the other thing that you were talking about, I think you had some stats on that, was just how many people are losing their jobs because of technology.
From just the early 2000s, so like that 2004 to 2009 range, so many people were impacted by the changes in the ways that we work that it impacted 7 million job seekers. And you're either out because they don't have technology that aligns with your skill set, or your job may be eliminated because now technology has replaced the function. So it is critical that we, especially young people, consider that those of us on the older end of things, we are going to need them to help mentor us and really help bridge this digital divide. It's a two-way street, just as we hope they can learn from some of the ways that we've done things without relying on a quick Google search to figure it out.
Yeah, and I mean, 7 million jobs lost to technology, and now it's up to us to reorient our skills. And we've talked about this before. We know that if you enter school today as a freshman, by the time that you graduate as a senior, a true senior, 4 years, whether it's 4 or 6 years for you, as a true senior, that most of the skills that you learn in the specific profession that you're looking at have already been replaced or updated, right? So it's no longer about, do you have a skill, but do you have the ability to learn, and then are you committed to learning and relearning, right? Are you committed to sort of a personal evolution? So to test that theory, I want to ask you a question about 3 very famous people. What do these 3 people, and the audience at home can answer this as well, what do these 3 people have in common? Tom Hanks, Jason Bateman, and Drew Barrymore. Before you answer, let's give the audience just a few seconds at home to lock in their answers. This is a trust system, so we'll go ahead and we'll wait for a second and allow you to come up with your answer. Do you have that? Tom Hanks, Jason Bateman, and Drew Barrymore. Do you know the answer to? You do. You're looking like you busted my
I do.
question.
We've talked about this a little bit, so I had an idea of where you were going to take it, but they are currently very well-respected actors for some of their work. Maybe not Drew quite as much as the other 2. I mean, Charlie's Angels reboot, hello. But when you think of their past cinematic work, they were all child actors.
Well, let me ask a question. Drew Barrymore, what's her first role? Do you remember?
E.T.
E.T. Phone Home. That's right.
Classic. So good.
And Jason Bateman was on...
Now, I had not remembered this, but Little House on the Prairie.
That is absolutely crazy.
So funny. I mean, because, that's where so many now adult actors did start out with sometimes cameos or, so we didn't retain that because we were so focused on like Michael Landon and and Nellie. She was my favorite.
Well, I tell you, I grew up in Los Angeles, so if you ever wanted to know where Little House on the Prairie was shot, Thousand Oaks, California. So I know that Jason Bateman was out there on the prairie in Thousand Oaks, California. And then, of course, the last one, which is Tom Hanks, and it's my favorite one of the example because this is a gentleman who is so skilled. And if you have a sort of top 10 list of the best actors in the world, he's going to make that list more times than not because he's just a force of nature when he's on there. But when he started, we're going to show a picture of this for those that are actually watching this and streaming. For those that are listening, just trust me, it's something to remember. You can always go to the website and check it out there. But Tom Hanks started his career on a show called Bosom Buddies. Now this shows you how times have changed. Here's the setup. Can you imagine being out in LA and say, I've got the great idea for a show. Here it is. Two guys move into a women's only building, and because it's rent controlled and they want to be able to get in that building and get that that great apartment, they're going to dress up as women every time they go in or go out of the building so that they don't lose their lease. And what strange things can follow as a result. And so Tom Hanks had to dress up in drag in his very first episode.
And it launched him into, stardom to some extent because it was a popular sitcom, for all of its bizarre storylines. And so when you think about that, those are three incredible examples of people who, through lifelong learning, essentially, have been able to stay relevant as so much has changed around them.
Little things are always changing. You came up with an example of little things that have been, changing that people may not even notice.
When we think about generational divides, sometimes there are ways that you can sort of, reveal your age without even understanding or acknowledging that you're doing it. And state abbreviations come to mind. Back during my school years, there was sort of this national shift to go from abbreviating states with often, 3 letters and a dot. For example, Illinois was I, capital I, L, L, lowercase l, period. So I would tell my parents once this shift happened and they came to 2 letters, 2 capital letters for every state abbreviation. So think capital I, capital L for Illinois. It revealed when my parents would still write the old school way that you guys, that's not how the new way of doing things, that's not how the young kids are doing it, right? So, it would show their age. And so, it's interesting how not being a part of learning that new lesson can sometimes date us and make us seem like we're not in touch with, what's hip or what's happening now.
3 letters is so yesterday, Tara. Come on. Well, we're going to learn more about this after the break, right?
We'll be right back.
Willing to Win is produced by Lift Productions. Guests on the program are not compensated, nor is their appearance representative of the Willing to Win views. Willing to Win does not necessarily endorse any people, products, or services.
Willing to Win.
Thanks for staying with Willing to Win. I'm Tara Thomas Getman.
And I am Jeff Kaplan, and we are back talking about information and in the world of continuous change. And I got to tell you, you were just mentioning that generation gap, and I've always seen myself on the lower end of the generation gap, right? But as the years happen and you start shifting and you're at the higher end. But I always thought, because I was so involved in technology, I'm an early adopter of any technology. I'm excited about that, that it would never happen to me. But I got to tell you something. It happened during a recent party I was at. It was the Super Bowl party, and they had this commercial there that was basically one of those QR codes.
Yes,
you know what that
I
is?
saw that.
It's like one of those things that you point your camera at and it does something in your phone. Right? And all it was a bouncing QR code around it. And it was really weird because the room was suddenly divided into 2 camps. Those sort of like over 35 and those under 35.
Right.
The under 35s were doing something. They were taking a picture of it, interacting. I don't know what they did, because by the time I realized what was even going on, it was over. And I realized, oh my gosh, I need Willing to Win just as much as anybody else.
Absolutely. No, that's a great example because you are instantly divided by what you know and don't know, and that's an information gap.
Yeah, it's like you find that there are pockets of experience now with social media and virtualization that can mean that some people are on the inside and others are on the outside. So I want to take that a little step further. I would like to examine it based on 3 topics. Let's examine how language has changed, how dance has changed, and, ooh la la, mating rituals. Okay, first of all, when it comes to language, I took a little informal survey with the younger people in my life, and I came up with these words. So you let me know if you know what this means. I'm going to yeet that.
That one I'm not as familiar with. I should know the other ones because I have teenagers too.
Well, we'll yeet it. We'll let it go. All right. And then this one sounds a little bit like it could have had its genesis in our generation. That is fire, my friend.
I love it. Yeah, it's like the post Paris Hilton. That's hot. That was her famous line.
It's definitely hot. And then one that I'm still sort of scratching my head on, but I guess there's two ways. There are two ways you can look at information. It's either fact or no cap. Cap or no cap. And so those are...
Oh yes, I've heard my 13-year-old son say it many times. It's a thing they do on Twitter and Snapchat, or actually TikTok more than Twitter.
Which, I'm on all the time. All right. And then when it comes to dance, all right, over the last few years, I've had my kids come in here, and for a while it was the twerk. Right? And then my least favorite dance of all time, of course, was the floss, which I never, ever learned because I thought it would be
That was made famous from Fortnite, so it was a big video game dance.
All right. And then the last one, of course, which is real popular now, is a reboot called The Jerk. And I think that we're going to have Alyssa on a little later, and she's committed to doing The Jerk for us live.
She has a history of being a dancer. And, The Jerk, it being the reboot, I then was like, I could do the Roger Rabbit back in my day. So I attempted The Jerk, and my daughter informed me. My 15-year-old said, no, I'm terrible at it. So as we age, even when we can be exposed to and learn about the nuances of how things change, that doesn't necessarily mean they'll claim that we fully understood it and adopted it as our own. We're still an outsider, even after we try it.
You realize your limits. It was so funny. For Valentine's Day, with actually Alyssa's help, I was able to give my wife some dance lessons. And I mentioned to you, we've been to Dancing in the Stars and stuff. So we're going to get couples dance lessons. I told my mom about it. She goes, oh, so you're going to lift her up and everything? And I'm like, no. You're watching the Olympics and you're thinking of a much younger guy. There'll be no lifting going on.
That's the famous Patrick Swayze lift, right? Nobody puts baby in a corner. I love it.
Well, nobody puts this baby anywhere near the lift because that's not going to happen. Which leads us to mating rituals. In my day, it was all about face-to-face, but it isn't face-to-face anymore. We went from this idea that you were dating with somebody or you were an item to a few years ago, it's, you weren't dating until you were Facebook official. But today it's something different.
Yeah, it's like you can snap somebody now, and a snap is just this short burst of information, be it like a still image or some words that would essentially disappear moments later. That's how impersonal this engagement has become. So for young people, they may not ever talk face-to-face about something that should be a meaningful exchange of like, would you want to go out with me, where you would in person say it. Now everything is I think, not as special and meaningful, but of course that's our bias because it's a generational change.
Talking.
Yes.
Right? And if you're talking, then you're a couple.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting. We just want to make sure that you're keeping up on the latest trends in language, dance, and mating rituals. And we've actually got some more information on how we can view the world around us and help us keep up to date and keep our commitment to lifelong learning by checking in on social media. With a light look at social media, we want to invite our correspondent, Alyssa Nolte, back with the Socialite.
Socialite.
You might have heard of this phenomenon called the Mandela effect. The Mandela effect comes from a self-identified paranormal consultant who detailed how she remembered former South African President Nelson Mandela, the first South African Black president, dying in the 1980s in prison, despite the fact that he lived until 2013. The examples on the internet are everything from the Target logo being different to the Fruit of the Loom logo showing a cornucopia when it in fact doesn't. Now imagine that you spent your entire life creating something, convincing the world that you're right, and then the remainder of your life convincing everyone that you were wrong, despite the fact that they now believe you. Check out this clip on social media of someone doing just that.
The concept of the alpha male was popularized by a wildlife biologist called David Mech in the 1960s. He had spent the rest of his career trying to convince people he was wrong. It was based on a study of captive wolves where normal behavior goes completely out of the window.
I got to tell you, that one really hits close to home. I don't know if you guys remember or not, but right at the end of writing the last book, Live It to Own It, available now in bookstores, wherever fine books are stored, Amazon. But when we were writing that book, we came across a section, and the editor said to us that I'd written something wrong, right? I had talked about the fact that somebody was like, I don't know, they're money grubbing or something like that, and I just made a reference to the fact that they were like a monocled Monopoly man. Right? And in fact, she wrote back and said, that is a Nelson Mandela effect, right? That is something that isn't true, that in fact, there is no monocle on the Monopoly man, right?
See, I was a voracious Monopoly player as a child, and I would swear that he had a monocle.
Same here.
Like,
right. It's just,
it blows my mind that he doesn't wear a
Right.
monocle, and you brought the image up yesterday and proved me wrong. I could not believe it.
Well, here is the big secret. If you read the book, Live It to Own It, we left that reference in just as sort of, what do they call those things on the website?
Like an Easter egg.
Easter eggs.
Yeah.
It's a special thing that's just between us.
And if you find it, we'll send you a free Willing to Win t-shirt.
Let us know.
Absolutely. And you can also go to our website, right? willingtowin.org, willing2win.org, to sign up and be a part of the conversation. And you don't have to find the Easter egg buried in the book to be part of our community.
But I will tell you, Tara was feeling bad that I put you on the spot about the dance. So she has volunteered to send us off with both of you doing your version of the floss. So no, it's not going to happen.
I thought it was the Roger Rabbit.
Oh, gosh. We don't want to end up in an orthopedic surgical situation, right, Alyssa?
All right. Well, we want to keep you safe, and we want to keep you safe until next week. So as you think about the world around you, the environment, the information you're taking in, 174 newspapers a day, think about the new tools that you're developing to live a better life in a world that's characterized by change. Until the next episode, I'm Jeff Kaplan.
I'm Tara Thomas Kettman, and on behalf of our correspondent, Alyssa Nolte, thanks for joining us for Willing to Win.
Willing to Win is produced by Lift Productions. Guests on the program are not compensated, nor is their appearance representative of the Willing to Win views. Willing to Win does not necessarily endorse any people, products, or services.